Equilibrium is beautiful because it's Pareto efficient and maximizes the joint surplus of consumers and firms. From an efficiency standpoint, it can't get much better than this. This is why economists are typically not great fans of government intervention, especially if they don't care much about fairness. However, sometimes governments do care about the distribution of the gains from trade that we discussed in the previous videos, and as a result, they do intervene. Governments can intervene in a variety of ways. For example, they can set a price floor. A price floor is a price below which it's not legal to transact. For example, it's not legal to hire someone for less than the minimum wage. Minimum wages are widely used to regulate how much the poorest workers get, but at the same time they can create inefficiencies in the marketplace. Another example is the price ceiling. Unlike the price floor, a price ceiling is the maximum price above which it's not legal to transact. So for example, in some global cities like Berlin and New York, renting in the free market is so expensive that local authorities have resorted to rent controls. It's just not legal to rent above a certain price. So the regulated price is below the equilibrium price. And as a result, the market gets a fairer price from a social standpoint. However, from a Pareto efficiency standpoint, the rental market, free of rent controls, allocates the right amount of properties to the people with the highest willingness to pay, which is the best allocation the market can produce from an efficiency standpoint, because it maximizes the joint surplus of buyers and sellers. So, rent controls are fairer than an allocation in which will drive up rents. But at the same time, it creates a number of inefficiencies, which we'll shortly illustrate. The other big intervention is taxation and subsidies. To make certain goods cheaper, the government may want to introduce a subsidy for buying each unit of those goods. Alternatively, if the government wants to raise more revenues or wants to discourage consumption of certain goods, it could introduce taxation for each unit of the consumed good. And as a result of both taxation and subsidies, the market is not getting its equilibrium allocation. The market is in disequilibrium as a result of the government policies, as a result of the government intervention. And again, the new allocation may be more socially fair, more environmentally friendly, or promoting better health. However, it will never be as efficient as the original Pareto efficient allocation. So the government has many other means of changing equilibrium allocations. For example, it can regulate how many firms enter and exit certain industries. As a result, it has a direct impact on the market structure of the industry. An example of this type of entry and exit regulation is the mobile phone licenses. In the past, the government used to allocate the new generation of mobile communication technologies to the highest bidders. It used to auction the telecom licenses. The market has changed a lot since the license wars, but the message remains the same. The government is able to regulate how many firms enter and exit the market. It is also regulating the quality of the product in the market so that consumers don't suffer from bad products or bad service. And finally, the government can affect the market allocation by introducing quantity regulations, not only price regulations, but also quantity regulations, such as quotas and coupon rationing. Quotas are typically introduced on the supply side of the market when the government decides that there is too much of a certain product on the market and wants to limit its supply on the local market. This is used, for example, in case the government wants to protect local firms from potential entrants from abroad. Coupons, on the other hand, are ways to ration the demand side of the market, to limit the quantity demanded down to a certain level which the market can supply. The need for coupon rationing arises because the demand is too high and the price is too low for the suppliers to show up. In any case, the market is way too far away from the Pareto efficient allocation. So, as you can see, there are a bunch of ways in which the government can affect the Pareto efficient allocations. That's what governments do after all. They mess with allocations. Sometimes the effect is fairer distribution of the gains from trade, which we have discussed previously, and sometimes the effect is a massive loss of welfare, driven by ideological dogmas, like the example of price ceilings under socialism. Let's discuss some of the very interesting examples of government interventions next. Thanks.